Give me your best picks from round one of last night, man.
You know what? It's not a sexy pick, but these guys don't get a lot of credit. We talked a lot about it last night on the show. The offensive lineman, I think Paris Johnson to the Cardinals was a really, really good pick for the Cardinals. Help kind of revamp their offensive line, give some protection to Kyler Murray, and improve their running game.
Yeah, Paris Johnson was definitely a good one, and you even heard about Kyler Murray as well. He was mentioning we saw those reports leaking that Paris Johnson was a person that Kyler Murray wanted in the draft. Jonathan Gannon coming in, having a lot of that hype, and when I saw Paris Johnson go that high, and we'll kind of get into the draft a little, or not the draft, the trade a little bit later, because for all of that movement just to take Paris Johnson at 6, a little confusing to me, but nonetheless, Kyler Murray wanted that player, and Jonathan Gannon wants to support his franchise quarterback that's kind of in the spotlight right now. Couple of best picks for me. I thought the first, second, and third overall pick of the
Yeah,
draft were pretty solid. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and then of course the Texans kind of
right.
stealing the night, coming in, getting Will Anderson. Some people calling Stroud and Anderson maybe the first and second best players. Of course, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. Some people saying the Eagles stole the draft as well. They take just now all of these Georgia defensive linemen to hold it
Yeah,
down on the trenches. Darnell Wright to the Bears was great. Some
that was one of
protection
my
for
other ones.
Justin
Yep.
Fields, a great one there, of course. JSN to the Seahawks. You heard me call that on the show last
Yep.
night.
Yep.
Kind of like a Tyler Lockett prototype in a way, slimmer receiver, can not
Right.
necessarily burn you down the field, but they can be that deep threat. They can be that route technician. I like Zay Flowers to the Ravens, of course, to help Lamar Jackson. Jordan Addison goes to the Vikings and kind of feels like a Justin Jefferson in a way, kind of that Stephon Diggs prototype or
Right.
whatnot. So you see that, being a benefit in Minnesota. Dalton Kincaid to the Bills, another one that I kind of saw coming last night on the draft. It's a little 2-1 for not only blocking but of course receiving as well. Well, not blocking, excuse me. They could have used that tight end, but having Dalton Kincaid as well, people calling him a receiver in a tight end's
Right.
body, something that was very beneficial for Buffalo. And then Miles Murphy falling to the Bengals, being next to Trey
I
Hendrickson,
know, so low.
going with that front seven in Cincinnati. So it's definitely going to be some great picks we saw in the NFL draft. I know you only mentioned Paris Johnson, but I just ran through some more there for us.
Yeah,
Any
no.
more best picks that you had, definitely?
Actually, this might be a surprise to some people. I think the Anthony Richardson is actually not a bad pick, considering the situation he's going to. I mentioned it on the show last night with his head coach Shane Steichen coming over from Philly, having some experience with a mobile, athletic type of quarterback. Maybe they're going to get back to doing something that they used to do, run the football more. Hopefully, Jonathan Taylor can stay healthy.
Yep.
Obviously, he's got his questions, his doubts about his accuracy. But maybe they'll be able to scheme some things up, and then maybe they can have a pretty successful year there. So that's one of my best picks, overall.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson was a solid one. I will agree. People are not going to agree with me saying that now at the beginning of this show compared
Right.
to how things are going to play out. But Anthony Richardson at 4 felt better than Will Levis. Clearly, nobody wanted to take that shot on Will Levis in round one. He's still going to be going into the second and third rounds of tonight. Anthony Richardson was a quarterback that Chris Ballard, the GM for the Colts,
Colts.
went on the Pat McAfee show and was like, "Hey, this is the guy we were looking at. This was the guy I was kind of alluding to the whole season." And he, dialed in on him, was grateful that it was the Texans, he
Yeah.
said, trading up to 3 because he knew they weren't going to take a quarterback,
Right.
just taking CJ Stroud at 2. So he was definitely happy to get Anthony Richardson. And we all like to think about Shane Steichen, how he mentored Jalen Hurts, how he worked with Justin Herbert a little bit. Anthony Richardson is going to fall into that type of prototype, very raw
I agree.
quarterback, boom or bust prospect. Of course, we've seen what he's brought us throughout these last few months leading up to the draft. But Anthony Richardson, as time goes on and as more unfolds about the pick, yes, very high for him, of course. But we
Right.
knew that was kind of his landscape. So Anthony Richardson to the Colts
He,
is definitely going to be
he's
one.
definitely has he definitely has the highest ceiling out of all the quarterbacks. He's the most athletic out of
Yep.
all of them, obviously. So now, will he be a Hall of Famer? I mean, right, we don't know yet. It's just one day of the draft, but
Yep.
he definitely can bring some excitement to Indianapolis, which they need. They've had a long string of quarterbacks the last couple of years with Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. It just
Yep.
hasn't worked out. You fire your head coach. You got a former lineman coming in, Jeff Saturday. He's gone. Now you got a new coach. So they needed that pick to reinvigorate that fan base, and I think he'll do it.
Right. Right, absolutely. And I mean, just the aggression that Anthony Richardson's going to bring. You talk about kind of just some of those prototypes and some of those quarterbacks they've had to go through season over season. Again, maybe Anthony Richardson isn't a guy that's going to have immediate impact. Maybe he doesn't play a whole lot of snaps this year. That feels like more of the ideal thing. But I
Right.
also do trust Let me let me rally that back because after the way last season played out with Indianapolis, that was kind of an eye opener to me. I mean,
It
the
was.
things unfolded with Matt Ryan. You're putting in Sam Ellinger, then it's not looking great. Then
Right.
Jonathan Taylor's not getting carries. I mean, it was a very, very confusing season for an Indianapolis team that felt like they were built well and
Right.
really just a couple seasons ago had a very good roster. And I thought they could have been a contender
Me
literally.
too. A lot of people had them slotted for the Super Bowl with their
Yep.
defense, offensive line, but all those things kind of took a step back last year.
Yep.
Partly probably because of injuries, but I think maybe they can retool it and they might be back in at least a contention for the division, which is winnable. But I think Jacksonville might run away with it. So
Yep. Yep. Now, if Indianapolis is competing with Jacksonville potentially for the South, I don't think it'll be crazy. Now,